All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Lookout. Today's the 16th of August. Sorry, just getting set up here. And we're messing around with the computer. Good morning. We're going to talk today about the Six Rivers Lightning Complex. Basically, these reports are what happened yesterday because they fly the fires at about 8 p.m., sometimes 10 p.m., sometimes in the middle of the night. But right now, there's not much fire going on the West Coast, and so we're getting infrared early. There's two planes that fly the whole West Coast for infrared operations in Boise. So when there's lots of fires going on, you might not get your infrared until 2 or 3. Which is hard if you're producing all these maps to give to firefighters that need to be printed at 6. So right now it's nice because you can actually stay up a little late and get your mapping done, at midnight instead of 5:59. Anyway, so each day we get infrared from the planes that fly over the night before. And oftentimes in this country, the fires aren't moving that much at night. So, what we see in the morning is pretty accurate of where the fire was when it stopped burning last night. Sometimes, fires burn actively at night. But for now, infrared from last night generally is going to be pretty accurate this morning. I'm not affiliated with this fire. I'm not assigned to it. I'm not being paid by them. And this is not official fire information. This is just me checking out the publicly available intel and telling you what I see. So we're going to jump in here like we have the last couple of days, looking east over Willow Creek, where we had 5 fires a couple of days ago. Now we've got 2. The Campbell fire is what we're calling everything that's merged on the north side of the river, and the Ammon fire is everything that's merged on the south side of the river. Interesting thing that's happening here is just that the fire continues to fill in from the firing operations. So usually we got one white line that shows where the fire was 24 hours before mapping. And because this is the way this is progressing, I thought it was interesting just to kind of throw 3 days of spread up. So you've got where the fire was 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago, and 72 hours ago. And you can just see kind of that backing spread or flanking spread of the fire and how it's slowly been moving across the landscape. We've got a couple other things we're showing on the maps this morning. Purple lines are planned fire lines, and there's a lot of that being planned. Brown lines are hand lines. Black lines are dozer lines. Blue lines are places that roads have been prepped to use as a fire line. So coming down here to the bottom of Coon Creek, firing is complete all the way down this ridge. It's been going on for about a week. Down towards town. And it's burning out in the interior now. And they expect to get some runs in here when the inversion lifts and we've got our down canyon winds. If you kind of take the perspective of the river here. I should say up canyon winds. In the afternoon, we get winds that are going to come up the canyon. And so slopes that are exposed to that we'll get more fire spread. So this fire that's established in the bottom here is going to likely run this slope. Fire that has crossed Bremer Creek or Coon Creek here is going to be running up here. It'll be spreading uphill through the day, but when the smoke lifts out in the afternoon and the up canyon winds come in, there'll be some runs up here. They don't expect them to be real problem because the prevailing flow is going to be from the northwest here. And so these runs will be running into stuff that's already burned and spotting into areas that are already burned. So the top of the ridge here on Coon Creek, this is formerly the Waterman fire. This has been really backing fairly regularly down over the ever since the fire started, and there's been attempts to to pick it up by going direct on the edge with a hand line. And those have not really been successful. So you can see like the fire spread downhill, and it kind of held up here for, between 3 days and 2 days ago. And then it crossed the hand line here yesterday, and it just continues to kind of roll out and go down. So it's kind of sketchy, putting people in this country on steep slopes at the bottom of a big fire in an area that's been burning for days, because you've got burning logs and other stuff that's been getting loosened up here over the last week coming down at you. And so they haven't been able to hold it there. And obviously they want to try, because when it gets to the bottom here, it's going to cross the canyon and burn up the other side. So bunch of effort has been put into trying to hook the bottom of this. It hasn't worked out. Plan B is fire line on the other side of the ridge. Purple lines on these maps are planned fire lines. So this one, mixed methods. It's going to be, if there's roads in there, they can get into. If there's dozers, they can get into. If they can put a hand line, but they want to try to put a line on this ridge. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see, all this stuff is kind of timing. So the fire crosses here this afternoon and runs up and hits this. Basically, this line isn't going to be very likely to hold a fire coming up out of the canyon unless we had several days to prep it and fire it like we've been seeing over here. With the stability we've had, we've been kind of able to get away with putting people into places that without that smoke layer and moderated fire behavior, we wouldn't put people like at the top of a hill above an active fire. So it's probably a little bit late to, this is just me waving my arms around, not being out on the ground, not being the person that's got any skin in the game to speak of, but probably a little late. I don't know if they're even working on this. It's just on the map. And so I'm sharing it with you. There's also this line farther out. Some dozer lines have already been pushed up that ridge on the north side of Cedar Creek. And so we'll see if they start firing out here. Coming north from there, we've got this whole area with road is line. And this has been kind of, the firing on this ridge system has been in the works for about a week. And you can see that pretty much it's filled in now. Perspective's a little off here, but we're looking west over the Campbell fire, and this mid-slope road here started firing it about a week ago. And you can see that the whole basin now has basically been filled in, except there's kind of this little hole here that hasn't burned out yet. But that's great, because now that this is all burned, it's a lot less likely that we're gonna we're not gonna have things running up out of here and hitting this line hard. So they've taken it's taken them quite a bit of time to build that depth, but that's really a big deal that they're able to burn out that whole basin without having it cross this mid slope line. It's a real accomplishment. Fire's backing down to fill in this part of this basin. And we've just been talking a bit about how this kind of strategic firing is all about trying to kind of build in a buffer out here. So when we do get things like the fire running up out of these canyons, like this area in here running up, that it just doesn't have a way to get through here with enough momentum to get out of this box. So all in all, a lot of drone firing out here, and so far so good. Kind of in the bigger picture, today and tomorrow, there's some instability forecast. They've been predicting potential thunderstorms. They're not sure if they're going to get those, but the instability that would help those thunderheads to build may result in the inversion lifting a bit over the next couple of days. And everything out here that's been burning has been kind of preheating the immediate area. And so if this fire, suddenly got a whole lot of fresh air, there's parts of it, all sorts of parts of it that can kind of wake up and and give us some runs. And so they anticipate that will happen if we get the inversion lifting, that we're going to have real fire growth like we haven't seen for the past couple of weeks. But in the meantime, they've had enough time to get a lot of this burnt. And so that's the story on the Campbell fire. This flank here that's unsecured is kind of going to be the story now for us to watch. Is when is it going to cross creek? Is it going to cross the creek? One thing about the location of that particular slop is just that we've got a northwest flow. And so if we do start to have lifting of an inversion, the northwest side of the fire is the one that's going to have the smoke clear out the soonest. And this downwind side is going to continue to have a lot of smoke on it, even if we have, these kind of winds that are clearing things out. If it's coming from the northwest, it's going to blow a lot of smoke and keep the heavy smoke shading the southeast corner of the fire. So if that does happen and we get visibility, heavy helicopters could make a lot of progress of keeping this fire from crossing the creek here. But for now, the smoke is really limited. Our use of heavy helicopters for most of the day, if they're getting out at all. All right, so looking downriver, now we're going to look up the South Fork of the Trinity. And we're going to come around here to the Ammon fire. I think one thing to point out here that isn't immediately obvious if you're not from around here or haven't spent time in these mountains is that it's steep. And even if it's not steep by Klamath standards, it's still, from the bottom here at the river, we're at 540 feet elevation. And at the top of the fire, we're up almost at 5,000. So there's quite a bit of terrain here, quite a bit of topography. And people say, like, how come they're not just putting this out? And it's like, well, it's the topography is a big part of that. So we're just kind of panning across here. Friday Ridge is on the kind of northwest side of the Ammon fire. And the fire here initially, for weeks really, the oak fire here has not crossed Madden Creek. But there's not a really good way to tie up this edge here. And so they're firing this whole ridge, and they've got dozer line down. And so yesterday, they brought fire quite a bit farther down this ridge, and now overnight, I'm sure they've brought fire down here. The conditions are favorable for holding Friday Ridge because the winds, as I said before, are kind of coming out of the northwest. And so here we're looking kind of west. And so the winds are going to kind of keep hitting this area from this direction. So that makes it a lot easier for them to fire this ridge and have it they're kind of taking their time to build depth here and let the fire back down into Madden Creek. Elsewhere on the fire, what we see is this kind of northeast corner of this fire has been spreading slowly for the whole time, and some places it's not moving at all. But it's just kind of steep, nasty country, and people are. I think I'm hearing some people saying, like, why aren't they going direct out there? If this was when I was a firefighter in 1972. We would have put it out by now. It's like, okay, well, it's probably good to go, maybe have walked it, if you walked it and told me that, then, I would listen more maybe. Anyway, why aren't they going direct? I don't know. It's steep. It's nasty. Some people say, don't tell me it's steep and nasty because we fought fire there before. It's like, well, there's a lot of good stories. Old timers, there's a lot of good stories, a lot to learn from the old timers. But it's kind of, it's interesting to me just how a lot of the old timers are just kind of like, oh, the Forest Service, if they weren't such wusses and fought fire like we used to, we wouldn't have this problem. When the reason that we have this problem with thick, sick forests is because y'all were so good at putting out every fire for the last 100 years. So when I hear people say, like, oh, just put it out like we have for the last 100 years, and then everything will be better. It's like, well, maybe maybe I don't think that's really going to help us out. Anyway, soapbox. So anyway, they're firing this road system, dozer line, hand line. It's interesting when you see a map like this and then it rains and then you just see these weird fingers kind of out across the landscape. No rain in the forecast, so I hope they can keep making good progress here. You know, it's interesting just how little this fire has spread. Coming around here to what was known as the Charlie Fire, now it's just all Ammon Fire. That fire's kind of just slowly been walking its way around. Okay, so now over here, there was this dozer line here. The northwest winds have been tough on this portion of the fire on the southeast corner. It did blow out a couple days ago. They fired off the road here, and it hasn't crossed the road there, which is great. There was a spot that showed up here yesterday, midday, and it hadn't really moved much over the course of the day. I don't know what's going on there. Not a lot going on in this division, other than this growth here, which looks like it's out to a road. As we've been talking about for days, a lot of retardant got painted on this ridge about a week ago, and we still had some clean air to work with. And they've slowly been kind of firing up this ridge road system to keep ahead of the rest of the fire. We were wondering the other day what was going on here with this firing operation coming down this dozer line. There's a road here that's going across, and they've been firing along that road too. So, you know, it's kind of possible that they'll hook it here, but you know, gullies are tough, and you know, when you put a bunch of heat out in here, you start to create updrafts, and it's just like turning this corner is not going to be easy for them. But they're trying, and from the mapping, you can't really tell if it has crossed the road here or not. You know, like I said before, these planes are flying, you know, fast at 20,000 feet, and then someone kind of interprets the image and draws a line on the map, and so you can't really get super duper prescriptive and say this has crossed the road or not. But it's kind of a tough shot for them to hold that, and but they're trying. Like we said before, there's retardant across the top of this ridge, Berry Summit, Mad River Road, which isn't going to buy them anything if you know, the fire blows up out of here and hits the ridge hard. It's just going to spot all over the place. In the intel reports today, they're just saying that with this change in weather, the instability and everything else, that if the fire does get established out here to the south, they expect it to, you know, make some big runs. It's got the topography and not a lot of great control opportunities. So just, you know, it's another one of those places on the fire where if we get through the next couple of days, they're saying that basically by Friday, we're going to be back to a stable atmosphere, and that if the fire blows out today or tomorrow or on Thursday, that it's going to have a little momentum that'll carry it into Friday, but that come Friday, we're going to be going back into this kind of stable weather pattern. So anyway, a lot of work done here. Dozer line, prepped roads, planned line out here around this next drainage. New dozer line kind of coming down from Brush Mountain. What's this? Planned dozer line. And as we've said every day, this knob fire does buy a real level of protection for people along the river from these fires to the south. And there's a lot of dozer line and prep that's been done around all these homesteads out here. All right. That's it. That's the intel report. We'll see what happens. A lot going on there, but one thing to keep in mind, there's just nothing going on anywhere else in the state, really. So these guys have all the resources they need. But it also shows you that you can have all the resources you need, and if you can't fly your airplanes and your helicopters, and the fire's just kind of skunking around, it's kind of going to do what it wants to do until it rains. But in the meantime, a lot of good progress made, and I'll jump over here and see if there's questions I can answer. What do you think about the introduction of nighttime aerial suppression operations? I think that they're not really well suited for a lot of places. Mainly because a matter of scale. So, sorry, I'm just trying to close my window here. Night ops, they do them in Southern California. They can be important in the urban interface, using helicopters to drop water on fires near houses. It's really dangerous. And I feel like a lot of this, that more suppression isn't really the answer. I know it's kind of philosophical and it's tough to hear when fire suppression is saving your house. But that there's not really a technical solution to our wildfire problems. That the more fires we put out, the worse the fuel loads get, and your house is going to burn in a future fire where the wind's blowing so hard that helicopters can't fly, etc. So I guess I'm not a huge kind of technology, and like I feel like a lot of the problems we're trying to solve with fire technology are the wrong problem. I feel like the problem isn't that we need to get better at suppressing fires, it's that we need to get better at living with them. And so I think, you know, nighttime ops, like there's a place for them, like rescue. But that, you know, our big losses that we have are during things like the campfire when the winds are howling, or, you know, Santa Ana fires in Southern California. And night ops aren't going to do anything to change that outcome of these big wind-driven destructive fires. And the night ops are going to be effective at putting out more of the good fires. I'd say when, you know, I know I live in Chico, a couple hours away from Willow Creek, and the air's bad here, and we're coughing, and the smoke sucks, and being evacuated sucks, and everything else. But I think that the amount of fire that we've had on the ground here in Willow Creek, as tough as it is to handle it, as badly as it sucks to be living it, it's kind of like one of the best things that could happen from a public safety standpoint of like, over the next, you know, couple decades, really, you're not going to have to worry as much about a big kind of east wind driven fire coming out of the hills and burning your town down. And so if we would have suppressed these fires when they were teeny, we would just be putting off the inevitable fire that is going to be like a Slater fire and take out Happy Camp, or be like a Bear fire and take out Berry Creek, or be like a campfire and take out Paradise. We could go on. So there's no fire-free option. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And night suppression ops. I don't know, man. War's not the answer. It's steep, it's rugged, it's overgrown. Willow Creek by the Knob Fire. Any idea why there aren't morning ops briefings on the SRF fires like there were on the McKinney and Yeti fire? I don't know. Each team kind of handles it differently. I know that this team had some kind of IT challenges early on in the fire, like getting live stream, getting internet, and it's a real problem. And I know a lot of people in this area don't have good internet. But yeah, each team's different. I like those morning op briefings too. Especially like guys like Dennis Burns that are just really good at breaking it down. All right. Thanks, everyone.